Well, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we will have another focus. This time around on youth. That conversation already started. Maybe you already got a hint as to who our next guest will be. But do stay tuned and find out. Well, I think you already saw there some of the objectives of the National Youth Service Corps, and that already gave away who our next guest will be. He's the Director General of that scheme of the NYSC. He's Brigadier General Shuaibu Ibrahim. General, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, the NYSC, a lot of conversation has sprung up around the National Youth Service Corps and its relevance in today's Nigeria. There's currently a bill being sponsored by Honorable Awaji Nombek Abiante, who is proposing that the NYSC be scrapped. Some people have done a vox pop, sometimes on social media, some other times in real life, and it would seem that, you know, their reasons are mixed. Some are for it, as expected. Some are against the scrapping of the NYSC, as expected as well. But the reasons that Honorable Abiante gives cannot be easily dismissed. I'm sure that you, as DG, have faced some of those challenges in recent times. The challenge of security in particular, and the fact that a number of, members of the youths of the scheme are being rejected from their places of primary assignment. What are your thoughts, especially given the security situation as we speak today, in terms of posting these core members who are, by law, expected to come on the scheme?
Yes, and I know just in every forum that I have appeared, I said democracy is in action, and everyone has his own opinion. But as far as NYSC is concerned, I believe NYSC is more relevant than before, given the situation we find ourselves now. In the area of security, it's not something I would discuss on the television, but I can assure you that the NYSC has partnered effectively with the security agencies. The federal government cares for the welfare of the core members, just as the NYSC. And I keep telling Nigerians that to the federal government and the NYSC, all lives matter. So the insecurity does not affect the NYSC alone, that you say NYSC should be scrapped on account of insecurity. We care for the welfare of the core members, just as the federal government does. So everything has to do with security of the core members. We're on top of the situation. However, everyone has to take some responsibility. The issue of security, the federal government has its own role to play. The NYSC has its own role to play. The core members as well has their own role to play, as well as parents. The challenge we have is that we keep telling core members, please don't put yourself in harm's way. Don't endanger your security. You must be security conscious. In a situation where a core member goes out on a party around 12 midnight and something happens, so what happened? So these are the things in every opportunity when I go around the camp nationwide. And also, thank God to COVID-19, we also became innovative in some of our operations. Some of our operations are now virtual. I have addressed core members from my office nationwide, and I keep bringing to their ears, please be security conscious. Don't put yourself in harm's way. We tell core members, if you are going to travel, please make sure you take permission so that we can know where you are at a particular point in time. And you must not travel at night. And you must take permission before you travel. For a core member to travel outside the country, it is only the Director General that can approve for you to travel. If your apply is not given, you don't move an inch. And your place of primary assignment doesn't have the right to permit you to travel. You only apply through your place of primary assignment to your local government inspector, to the state coordinator, if you have got to travel within the country. Likewise, if it's outside, you follow the same channel to the headquarters, and if it is given, that you go. So we are concerned for the security of the core members because we are also parents, and we know what it takes for us to lose our young ones. Our loved ones, because I told them that your parents have invested so much in you and they want a return on investment. So you should please, whatever action you're going to take, cast your mind back to where you're coming from. I don't do anything untoward that will put your family and the government in a difficult situation.
Director General, I think what you're talking about is a situation whereby the core members or expected core members have already arrived camp, have done their rotation, and have been posted to their places of primary assignment. But for a number of parents these days, and even the core members themselves, the posting is a source of concern, something that gives them anxiety. When the list comes out, the first things people are looking for is where I have been posted and how, the relative distance between where I currently am and where I've been posted and how I'm going to get there. Most people know that traveling by road these days is a journey in anxiety. People do not rest until, loved ones do not rest until they have heard that their loved ones have arrived safely. How are you taking into context the fact that even transiting from where these will be core members currently are to even their places of orientation camp is a source of distress?
Well, we normally communicate with core members. Whenever we release our postings, we do tell them what to do. And that's why I said, if you're going to travel on a long distance, that will get up to 6 o'clock, please pass the night. We have our secretariats nationwide. We have also colleges built by state governments nationwide. Also, the core members, prosperity core members, wherever you find, whether in the army barracks, police, the DSS, or whatever, they give them a priority because they see them as government children. So we don't joke with the welfare, especially when it has to do with their movement and so on. But there are other strategies we normally do, and it's not something we have to start discussing it in the public.
Are those concerns coming more and more to you, though? Because we do know that before now, a number of people will, raise concerns about where they have been posted, and those concerns are immediately addressed by their reposting. How often do you have to do that within the service right now?
Well, it's not as much as we say, but I can assure you that if you go around the country, I was in Borno recently. I went to the IDP camp, and I was shocked. The core members from which part of the country that were doing teaching IDPs. I saw core members from the southeastern parts of the country. I saw those from the south, and so on. And it was quite interesting. And when they address them, they don't speak Hausa, but they are forced to learn. So the children also are forced to also learn English. So it's a big privilege for the core members and prosperity to have this opportunity to serve their country. And I keep telling also parents and our fellow Nigerians that if you go to the Northeast, most of the NGOs are run by foreigners. And I say foreigners will not love our country more than Nigerians. Through the NYSC, we teach our children, the core members, the spirit of volunteerism. The spirit of volunteerism, because some of them even volunteer that they want to go to a particular state because maybe they work with a certain NGO, they want to go, they can add more value to that community. And they get there and they leave a huge imprint in the life of the community they serve. So apart from that, corps members are on reserve. They are part of the national defense policy of this country. So where there are serious war, our corps members are the and who are educated, they are knowledgeable, they can be trained. We can imagine within a short week, 3 weeks in the orientation camp, and the corps members are molded. They are like soldiers. You see the drill and so on. You see a female corps member blowing army bugle, playing military band. And so if not for the knowledge, I wonder where are you going to mobilize such young Nigerians to train them quickly to put in their best for their country. So corps members are on national, they're on reserve. They're also part of the national defense policy, and their parents should teach also their children the spirit of patriotism, so that wherever they find themselves, they should add value. You add value to where you find yourself, so that by the time you leave, you have a lot story to tell. All of us I was an ex-corps member, including you, Mokbe. So you can also remember during your life as a corps member how you have contributed to your community. So we want to tell our corps members to be patriotic, and also our parents to please support the corps members, that the federal government cares for their welfare. But however, security is everybody's business. So everybody must
DJ, let's take a break at this point.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll take a closer look at the concerns raised by Honorable Abiante in his bill to the House of Representatives. Please stay with us. Brigadier General Shoaib Ibrahim, who is the Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, is still with us here in the studios, and we're talking about current calls by some quarters, especially in the House of Representatives, to repeal Section 315 of the Nigerian Constitution, which is the section responsible for setting up the NYSC, and right now there are calls that the NYSC be scrapped. Let's take a look at some of the concerns raised by Honorable Abiante. He says incessant killings of innocent corps members in some parts of the country due to banditry, religious extremism, and ethnic violence. Public and private agencies and departments are no longer recruiting able and qualified Nigerian youths. He says they rely heavily on the availability of corps members being well remunerated and get discarded with impunity at the end of their service year without any hope of being gainfully employed. And he also says, due to insecurity across the country, the National Youth Service Corps management now gives consideration to posting corps members to their geopolitical zone, and he says that this defeats, it would seem, the purpose of the NYSC, which is that people should be able to go to other parts of the country to go and appreciate the culture and religions of other people in the country. Now, if people are being posted within their geopolitical zone, don't you agree with him that it does indeed defeat the purpose of the NYSC, the primary purpose of the NYSC?
Well, it's not so. Because, you know, when you want to discuss issues about an organization, you have to make a very serious research. You have to also provide empirical evidence to justify your argument. Because as far as we're concerned, the only challenge we had where we lost our corps members was during the 2011 election in Bauchi. That corps members that were involved in election duties lost their lives. That's the main documented one that we had. And apart from that, you know, we lost Olabi. He was on line of duty. And the vice president, also on behalf of Mr. President, was in the family's house in Zaria with me and also the governor of Kaduna State. That's to show the government's concern for the welfare of our corps members.
Yeah, but in 2015, I think we also lost 1 or 2 corps members in the line of election duty as well.
But, you know, in such cases, you know, we mobilized as much as about 350,000 corps members. And the corps that are involved in electoral duty, they're close to 25,000. Things like this are bound to happen. Like we have a challenge in Ekiti, where I was there recently. One of the primaries, you know, one of the primary assembly election or so, where hoodlums attacked a polling station. One of our corps members was hit. And I went there, the governor was there, and the boy has recovered. In fact, we said we are going to relocate him from Niger State. I said I will relocate him to another. He said no, that he wants to go back and continue his service. He said that's the spirit of patriotism. He's from Niger State. But he said he still wants to go back to Ekiti even when he was shot. You see, the NYSC, the issue of posting, look, just as I mentioned to you off the camera, corps members will post, especially married women. We had challenges over those who are married, posting to most of them to a state of origin and so where their husbands are. So, and also the strenuous exercises we have in camp. Some of them come with pregnancy, we don't want to get them involved. So it's okay, let us now exclude the marital women. But the National Council of Women's Society, they took on us that we are not gender sensitive then. We have no option than to reverse the policy. And then there are some extreme cases of corps members with medical challenges, where maybe they were taking their treatment before they were called for service. We will now pose them to where they continue their medication, probably maybe from that state of origin. But it's grossly insignificant that you reference it that because of a few 0.20%, but on the basis of that, it is placed with scrap. That if you go to anywhere, any part of the country, you go to Bayelsa, the landmass in Bayelsa is very small. You go to the Escravos, you'll be on the water for about 5 hours. Once you arrive in that village, madam, you see coming over from the northern part of the country. You begin to wonder, if not for NYSC, what would take them there? Even me as a corps member in 1989, I served in one of the remotest areas in Borno State. They call the place Askira. The distance between Askira to the next town, Uba, is about 40 kilometers. There was no road then. It would be over 4 hours on a 40-kilometer road then because the road is terribly bad. When we were there, myself with my fellow Yoruba, Igbo, and so on, coming from Delta State, we were there. If not for the NYSC, we would just put us there. And when we were there, we have no cause to travel again because the road is bad. Our place where we is so far. We remain there. We gave our best.
Director General, I think that we need to understand, for a number of people, they believe that the scheme, the idea of the scheme itself is laudable. However, in the face of current realities, they think that it is time that we either scrap it or we modify it. This honorable member is calling for the scrapping. Is it true or is it not true that as a result of the security situation right now, people are requesting to be posted within their geopolitical zones? Is that correct?
It's not so. And as if we talk of insecurity, we have had attacks on schools. Do we have to shut off our schools nationwide?
Well, in some cases, we've had to shut them at least temporarily.
But they're open. So for how long are we going to shut down the scheme? And corps members also put in their best. So if you say we should shut out because there's an attack in a particular area, that we should not scrap the scheme completely?
So you are saying that we haven't had cause to post corps members within their geopolitical zones as a result of the concerns?
That's what I've explained. There are situations where corps members with challenges will do the posting. We'll do such postings. Where there are challenges, we'll do that. But it's not that it's a priority that every corps member must be posted to your... No, we don't do that. We don't do that. There are constituents on extreme compassionate ground. We do because we have our policies.
That has always been the policy.
We follow it strictly. We follow it strictly.
Let me also get this. I mean, the second complaint that he's raising, which it would seem puts the youth at a disadvantage because...
Unemployment.
Exactly, unemployment. A number of people are now beginning to rely on the services of corps members and not employing their own members of staff because they are hoping that corps members will come and fill in. And these people are depriving, it would seem, people who ordinarily get jobs because even the corps members themselves are not retained at the end of service. And they're discarded, according to him.
Yeah.
You know, what was the language he used there? But they're just discarded carelessly, it will seem, after their mandate has expired. What is the NYSC doing to, to ensure that even the corps members themselves are not exploited in the name of service?
We do this. Madam, we have 75% of our postings are to rural areas. 75% of our corps members serve in the rural areas. And the idea of that corps members are being used and discarded is not so. We know white-collar jobs are difficult to come by these days. And that was why in 2012, the NYSC introduced what we call the Skill Acquisition and Entrepreneurship Department, training for all corps members in camp. It's mandatory, it's compulsory. We have what we call the post-camp training. Then at the end of the orientation, the training continues for the corps members. And we've been partnering with the Bank of Industry, NYSC Foundation, Access Bank, Unity Bank, among other stakeholders. They make startup capital available for these corps members. And those of them that are very serious, they will service their businesses. I have this clip for you to watch to see what these corps members are doing. Those in service and those that are now passed out from service. They've set up their own businesses from this. And because of this, to make more opportunity available for my corps members nationwide. And that's why I've appealed to the federal government. I've also written through the Ministry of Youth and Sport that the government should establish what we call National Youth Trust Fund. From the National Youth Trust Fund, funds be made available for core members as startup capital so that they can set up their own businesses from the skill they've learned during the service year. I can assure you the government take into this my advice. Core members who finish have not look for white-collar jobs. In fact, they don't know where their certificates are because those that benefited from our skill acquisition program that are set up their own businesses, they tell us they don't know where their certificates are. Because they built houses, they got married, have their children, built schools, and even some have even built hospitals, of their personal hospitals, with the stipends they got from the NYSC, with their determination and hard work, they made it. And we do invite them to camp. That's why in Niger, set to an aluminium company in Niger and Mina. He has trained over 5,000 core members, and he was doing it free. And also the communities where he set up his businesses, those who are out of children, school children, he brought them to his company and he was also training them because he believed that NYSC made him what he is. So he must also give it back to the society. And that's what he's doing. And there are so many thousands of such ex-com members. By the time you watch this program, you see, you know what we're talking about. There are many. There are some from Ondo State, posted to Anambra. If to him to report, he said he was scared. They said they eat people there. The parents were scared. He said he would go. He went. And what happened? He's now a permanent secretary in Anambra. He married from there. He's Igbo. He married his children. The wife is Igbo. He speaks Igbo as I'm talking to you. The children speak Igbo. The children speak Igbo as I'm talking to you. And most of them, when they set up their businesses, they don't set up their business in their state of origin. They set up their businesses in their state of service, where they served. And there are a lot of intermarriages. Most of our female, the history of their marriage can be traced to during their service year because they normally meet their fiancé during the service year. Some before the end of the service year, they get married. Of course, we attend several weddings. Like that. And NYSC do support such weddings so that we can continue to encourage them. Because such person, what do you tell such couples of different ethno-religious and cultural background?
Have you been able to do a poll, though, to find out how, the NYSC is being rated by, say, graduates or even those who have attended the scheme? Is there a poll for the NYSC to rate itself?
I haven't given you the poll from my house. Madam, I appeared on the program, on the TVC program. So when I go to the house, my children say, Daddy, you said that we know NYSC, we are going to serve. Daddy, we are going to serve. They poll stands from my house. So my own children were in the university. I said, Daddy, we are going to serve. When we're students at school in Benin, we look up to core members, the way they dress, this crescent vest and so on. They serve as an inspiration to us that we want to also wear this dress. And my course of study, history, was influenced by a core member who taught us. I know I'm not doing my, but 5 of us chose history because of the core member who taught us the subject. He was very good. His name is Uriah Nda. He's from Niger State. He served in Bender State. So NYSC, people look up to it as a source of inspiration that I want to be graduate, make up my studies, and also serve. And for the little stipends, the stipend they get, they even help their parents with it. So even save money and set up their little business from the money they get, because apart from the allowance we pay them, some of them is a platform and a lot of opportunities for them. So get those of them in a channel here, you give them allowance. By the time some of them don't touch it, that 3,000 we pay them, they now live on the allowance paid by channel, and they save it. At the end of the day, they invest on it. So by the time this trust fund comes on board, I'm sure a lot of opportunities will open up for the core members. NYSC provides a platform. I can assure you, if not for NYSC, when I go to all the camps of the Federation, I ask, how many of you have been to this part of the country? All the hands are up. They've not been to this part of this country. And I told them, if not for the NYSC, you will not be here. So by the time NYSC is no longer there, some people will be born in Lagos, they will school in Lagos, they will get married in Lagos, have all their children in Lagos, die in Lagos, and be buried in Lagos. So the NYSC gives such opportunity for people to go outside their geographical region, so that because traveling is part of education. And I said, even during our own generation when we served, we don't have this opportunity of GSM, telephones, and so on. So now NYSC is even going to bind Nigerians more because of technology. When we passed out, there was not like Book of Life when we finished service in 1990. But now, as you finish service, there's what we call the Book of Life, where all your contacts, your photographs, your email addresses, your phone numbers will be there, so that they will never lose contact. Some of my colleagues that we passed out together, I went on Facebook, whether they are alive or not. Some of them we lost contact to today. But the community where I served, that relationship is between me and them today.
Let's quickly flip this to Lagos now. I'm sure my colleagues will have questions for you, gentlemen.
Well, yeah, General, you know, for the fact that the bill got to the House, I think they said past second reading, there are those who will take it somewhat seriously. Do you think that it's lack of proper research or it's got a sprinkling of mischief?
Please come again.
For the fact that the bill got to the second reading in the House, and there are those who will take it seriously, perhaps if they look through the reasons, but haven't heard you explain that proper research needs to be done. Do you think that it's lack of research on the part of the gentleman who moved the motion, or there's a sprinkling of mischief?
Well, just as I said earlier, I said democracy that is in action. Everybody is entitled to his opinion. And in fact, also what, for having raised this, sponsored this bill, it has also raised the consciousness of Nigeria on our activities. We're on our part, because I believe that before you move something, you need to carry out a research on whatever you want to discuss, so that you get to know much about what we are doing and so on. I know the NYSC will have a challenge of documentation. That's why when I took over as DG NYSC, I believe that there's a need for us to document our activity. I set up a committee, and we came out with, we have written 9 books, and those books are here with me. NYSC, the role of the NYSC on national integration, on skill acquisition, on community development service, our role on election, NYSC in education, NYSC in the health sector, and so on, and contribution to national development. I can assure you, by the time you read this literature, you get to know that the core members are doing extremely well. All that we need to do is we are trying to bring a lot of changes and reform in the scheme, just as I've mentioned here in Abuja, that we should emphasize, in addition to promotion of national integration, we should also emphasize also on skill acquisition, and then startup capital for the core members, so that the skill will teach them during the service here, so that we can now give them startup capital to set up their business. The ones that have benefited from our stakeholders, Bank of Industry and so on, that made this startup capital available for the few that benefited. They were established their business. And the important information Nigerians should know, as I said earlier, most of these companies who benefited from these facilities, they don't go to their state of origin to establish their businesses. Rather, it's their state of service that they decided to stay. Most of them got married, they have their children, and they are training people, indigenous of that community, on their businesses. So I also come to our camps, also to give back to what the NYSC has given them to their fellow core members. So I think it's democracy is in action, and everybody is entitled to his opinion. But there's a need on our own part to also explain to Nigerians that NYSC is more than relevant than before. NYSC should be more strengthened, and people should also to get to know about the scheme, what we are doing. And this literature that I've written, and they also watch our program, NYSC Half Hour, on NTA today by 7:30, every Wednesday by 7:30. They'll get to know more about what the scheme is doing.
Well, General, some of the things that the sweetest thing in my ears that you have said is that, you know, the NYSC is helping people to develop entrepreneurial skills. Now, I have a question on my mind about that, because if it was as strong and as effective as you say, I don't know if we will still have the number of unemployed young people in Nigeria as we have now. Because, I mean, you also know the figures, and I'm very sure you are as concerned. Yes, you have listed a number of initiatives and situations where young people have, you know, created jobs and stayed in the areas where they served, as opposed to moving back to their areas of residence. So then, but you also mentioned that there is a need for the NYSC to be strengthened to do better. In terms of law, is there any part of the NYSC Act that you think needs to be amended by the same House of Representatives and the Senate to help the NYSC to do better than you're doing now? We'll still come to the objectives, but answer that first.
Thank you very much, Ayo. Of course, just as the suggestion we are making, that we are giving to the federal government. We say there's a need, if they can set up the National Youth Service called Trust Fund, so that it should be captured. The National Assembly should pass a bill to that, to pass an act to that effect, so that once established, as I said here, that the core members that were trained, that have acquired skill during the service year, so that the startup capital can be made available to them. But as it is now, our stakeholders will not be able to accommodate the number of core members who apply. And that is why we also go, just as I said earlier, we too are thinking out of the box to see how we can further reject the organization. And that's why we came up with this idea that if the federal government can key into this suggestion, I can assure you that investment in graduate youth is not going to be a waste, because with their intellect, their passion and commitment, they are going to take off thousands of Nigerians off the unemployment market. I can assure you that, because of what the few that have benefited, what they have done. Is going to be a testimony to what I'm saying.
Well, let's quickly look at this. I'm looking at a number of feedback now from our viewers. And there's this one is from Onu. He says, well, apart from a sort of internship, what other value does the NYSC have? Those defending it are doing so because the scheme is a big conduit for stealing public funds. The funds wasted on NYSC should be used to entrench the graduate internship scheme, now abandoned. He believes that there are other ways, because you talked about the entrepreneurial program, there are other ways graduates can be, brought into an entrepreneurship program without directly going into the NYSC. What do you say about it being a conduit, as he says there, for embezzlement?
It's not true. It's not true. That is opinion anyway. But however, I can assure you that, what about the aspect of integration? Because these are two things. That's why I say NYSC, our objective is what? To promote our unity and national integration. But we have gone to rely and also promotion of self-reliance among our common members.
But looking at how divided we currently are right now, when you look at the agitations, the secessionist agitations and all the other, we're also seeing in the Southwest, some agitations there too for secession. Are we really as united as which is the objective of the National Youth Service Corps, to get people more and more united? Is it really working when you look at the divisions today?
I ask you a question. If there have not been NYSC, what would have happened to our country? If there has not been NYSC, what would have happened to our country? I keep telling Nigeria that there's no country that doesn't have challenges. But they turn their challenges to opportunities. All we need to, I used to telling ex-com members like you and others, over 5 million people have passed through the service here. If you look, just go to the oath you took, the pledge and the oath you took during the service here. That oath is binding on you even after the service here. So I want to appeal to Nigerians that always cast your mind back to the life you live during the camp, where your next bed neighbor is an Igbo chap and you're a Hausa man. The other person is from Delta. Cast your mind back to that scenario and let us live together. There's no country that does not have problem. We have no other country except Nigeria. Except you say you have another alternative. We have no country except Nigeria. We must be patriotic and see how we can put our hands together and move our country forward, promoting our fault lines in order to help this country. Let us cast our mind, let the spirit of the NYSC live in us. And I can assure you there are those with the spirit of NYSC living in them. And that's, as I said earlier, that's why with technology now, NYSC is more than needed than before. Because we lost touch with some of our colleagues. With technology now, if somebody sees you talking on the national television, say Nigeria should break, there's somebody from somewhere who, a fellow member with you, will call you. Say, my friend, what are you talking about? Cast your mind back to our life in the camp. Because if you go to the orientation camp now, nobody's talking of Biafra or anything, or Arewa or this thing, because they are united together. And that is what NYSC should be, is established to be. Let us not go back to harrowing days. Jeragawa keeps saying that. When I used to sit on NTA, Nigeria should not allow us to go back to harrowing days. It's not good for the system. Let the spirit of NYSC live in us. We should be patriotic and our country first in all our actions. And know that there's no country that does not have problem. Every country has its own challenges. But they turn the challenges to opportunity. And that's what my own, my call to our fellow Nigerians and our ex-com members, or retired com members sometimes, as I call the people. Let the spirit of NYSC live in us.
Well, it's a fine place to live in general. I'm going to finish with the last lines now. Nigeria is ours. Nigeria we serve. Well, thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Today this morning. Brigadier General Shuaibu Ibrahim is the Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, and he's been speaking with us here in our Abuja studios.